LifeSpeak podcast sponsored by Chafin Real Estate Services. Ready to find your dream home or maximize your rental income? Visit chafinrealestate.com or call 775-575-5000 today.
My name's Leanne Chaffin, and I want to welcome you to LifeSpeaks, where we share testimonies, stories, some tragic, some, just the way life goes and how God intervenes and shows up. And today, I am just so grateful to have my good friend Brian Daniels here. He has just kind of piqued my interest, and I think that we're going to really enjoy what testimony he has. So thank you for being here, and thank you for answering the call.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. So when I asked you to be on it, you were kind of not sure, and then God kind of sat on your head for a couple weeks or something.
That's right. Yeah, like we were just discussing, I felt like God has been put it on my heart for a long time to get my testimony either on video or some way to get it out there. I know a lot of people that don't really know my story, and I've just have been looking for an opportunity to do this, and then because I am a bit of a procrastinator, I felt like maybe he's orchestrated this.
Yeah.
This is great.
Well, just for information, we've been on a worship team for several years, and I just stepped back off of it, and it's so cool that we get to do this because I feel like this is, a blessing for me.
For sure.
So I'm just going to prompt you with a few questions because I don't know a lot about your testimony.
Of course.
And if something pops in my head that I want to share with you, we're going to kind of have a conversation.
Sounds great.
So let me know who you are.
Okay. Well, again, my name is Brian Daniels, and I would say that I classify myself as a Northern Nevada native, Reno native, although I wasn't born here, but I moved here when I was really young. And I've grown up in Reno my whole life, really. And and so my story is an interesting one. My history, probably not much different than most kids, with the exception of kind of like the background of my family and who we were. We're a poor family, in the 80s, growing up in the 80s, late 70s, early 80s. It's not uncommon. Most families were struggling to get by to some degree. And so we lived in apartment complexes and things like that. And growing up, it was, like I said, pretty normal childhood. Both my parents worked full time. So kind of going back early, it's remembering that, it was a lot of my brother and I have a younger brother, and we were kind of on our own a lot at home. And so there was a lot of kind of self-parenting to a certain degree. But at the same time, we had school and things like that. We had after-school programs and things. So, and my aunt looked after us for a while as well. And so there was always, my parents were always looking for ways to make sure that we were, not just running rampant. But there were times where, we would just have to figure it out on our own. But, I think that was a time where maybe kids weren't as, I don't know. I think that maybe we weren't as crazy as some of the kids could be these days. But although looking back, we did some pretty crazy things. So, but anyway, so that was kind of a normal childhood growing up in that kind of life. And my dad was he managed a local guitar store here, Bizarre Guitar, for
you're kidding.
No, for many years.
I've gone there so many times.
Yeah, many years.
Many picks I have purchased.
That's right. Yeah. Well, Greg Golden, the owner, is a great guy, and I grew up in that store. I spent a lot of time in there. And
my mom, you're such a good guitarist.
Well, so I'll get to that part.
Okay.
This is an interesting segue here, but my mom, she worked she worked at A&W Root Beer for a long time, and then she ended up at Rayleigh's and was in Rayleigh's forever. And so as a kid, though, I'd spent a lot of time in and out of Bizarre Guitar, seeing things and growing up and stuff. And my childhood was one of those things though where it was. There were a lot of things. It's interesting when you're a kid how you can, looking back at life, you remember maybe the more tragic drama kind of filled situations. Even though my childhood was great, I had a great childhood, and my dad and mom have always been wonderful, and they
great.
loved us, and always made sure to take us out and do fun things like camping and fishing and stuff like that. But it wasn't without its ups and downs as well. There were, we had some issues with alcohol and drugs in our home and things like that when I was growing up. And so I had exposure to a lot of things that probably were not real great for children. A lot of kids go through that kind of thing. And during that time particularly, probably more than we realize even. And so I was exposed to a lot of stuff. But at the same time, it was just, I guess maybe as a kid, you kind of get acclimated to that, and you kind of just think this is just the way life is. This is normal. And not that my life was, like I wasn't abused or anything like that. And so, it was just kind of a normal way of life. And so growing up, that was my life, and exposure to a lot of music and a lot of stuff like that. And I never really took any interest in guitar at all. Never did. It wasn't until like 8th grade, I had a buddy of mine I was real big into skateboarding growing up, and that whole scene and punk rock music and mohawks, and that was my whole background, right? And it wasn't until one of my neighbors that lived down the street from me, my buddy Ryan, who's just a great guy and a good skater, and we skated together all the time. He's like a brother still to this day. But he came over one time and he was like, "Hey man, you got a guitar, look at that." And a little amp, and it belonged to my brother at the time. And he was like, "You mind if I try it out?" And I was like, "Sure," because the only thing I'd ever been exposed to is either really heavy metal or classic rock or like folk music.
Yeah, folk music. Yeah.
So,
that's what I played, folk music.
Right, exactly. And so my mom was into she was into the classics and stuff. And so anyway, there was an electric guitar that my brother had there, and he picked this guitar up and he just started playing these chords on it, grinding out all this stuff that was like music I like listening to. And I'm like, wait a minute, I can learn to do this, And so it was from that moment on, I just started picking up that guitar in my free time and just kind of noodling around on it. And I found that I've loved it, and I just wanted to learn it and play more and more and more. And so it was one of those things where I just grew up in skateboarding and punk rock music and guitars, and that was my life all through high school. And actually ended up forming a band with a bunch of buddies from school, and we decided, hey, we're going to start a punk rock band,
What was the name?
We were a local band called Sucker Punch. Yeah. Yeah, and it's
so
every
funny.
bit of what you would imagine.
Yeah.
So, but surprisingly, so we had this idea where we're like, there was this type of music that was starting to birth in the mid to late 80s. It had been around for a while, but it really started gaining popularity. It's called ska music.
Yeah.
Right? You've heard of that. So we were like, we loved ska music because we could play punk rock and ska music at the same time, and everybody loved it. And so we decided to be a punk ska band, and so that's what we did. We actually ended up recruiting like 3 different horn players, or 2 of them, I'm sorry, from the University of Nevada, and they were young kids too that wanted to play in a ska band, and so we had a horn section and all this stuff. And I think it was one of those things that kind of set us apart from every other local band in the area because nobody was like us. We were the only band that was doing that kind of music and had a horn section to boot. And so we got really popular, actually, really popular. Along with the college kid scene, we were playing a lot of the fraternity houses, and then we started getting more and more big name gigs and a lot of shows that were happening at a club called the Del Mar Station that was down on Virginia Street for a long time.
I remember that.
Remember that club? Yeah. And so there was a lot of national touring acts that would come through there and stuff. And so we always got the call. Whenever a big band was coming to town, we got the call. We were playing with them. We were opening them up with them. And there was another Southern California band called Pennywise that we actually got to open up for those guys at the Livestock Event Center. And that was like several thousand people at that show. And then we got called to play a couple of the Warped Tour venues up at the Boreal Ski Resort and just things like that. And so it was really fun and exciting, and we were living this life, and it was every bit the rock and roll lifestyle that you could imagine. And during that time, I'd actually I had actually met my my first wife. Her name is Naomi, and she's great. And but I was a hot mess. My life was a disaster. And
How old were you?
yeah, I was. Oh gosh, I'm terrible with my age and timeline, so forgive me on this. But I I think it was probably late 20s, early 30s ish.
Okay.
You know. And she'd actually go to school with me, and we grew up together as well. And kind of we never really knew each other other than friend circles. But it just so happened that a friend of mine was dating a friend of hers, and it was kind of one of those things, you know. And we met, but it was one of those things that happened really, really fast. I just remember it was like we were dating for a short period of time, and next thing I don't know how this happened. We ended up at the mall, and we were looking at wedding rings, and I'm feeling like it was almost like I was having an out of body experience. Going,
my
is this me right now? But I was just kind of like had no control over my decision making whatsoever, you know. So anyway, we ended up getting married, and we had a daughter together. We have a daughter together. Her name is Morgan, and she's just beautiful and amazing, and so proud of her. And she's just awesome. And she has a family of her own now, all grown up. But it was one of those things where it was like, as it was happening during that time, where this whole music scene was taking over my life, you know, and it was the most important thing to me. And I'm ashamed to say that, but that's who I was, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't have God in my life at that time.
Right.
Our background was one where nobody in my family was churched.
Right.
I'd never been to church, didn't know anything other than having, as a child, this understanding that there was a God. And I knew there was a God, and I knew there was a heaven, but I didn't know anything about him.
How did you get introduced, or it was just something in your
So
heart?
this is interesting, and this kind of ties into where I'm at right now. My ex-wife was actually had come from a Christian background.
Okay.
And so she had started talking about God, and she took me. They used to attend Granite Hills Baptist Church out there in Red Rock.
Oh,
We were all
yeah.
North Valley's kids. Stead, you know, Red Rock, Cold Springs. And so she was like, "Well, I think I had kind of implied like I'd like to go to church and see what this is about, right?" And we went, and it was a Baptist church.
Oh yeah.
And in my frame of mind at that time, I'm like, yeah, this is exactly the way I had envisioned church. It was hymnals and old people in suits. And granted, everybody was lovely. They were amazing and super nice and very welcoming and friendly people. But I just felt like this is just not for me.
Yeah.
So anyway, and so time went on, and our relationship just kind of fell apart. And I just kind of was never home, and we ended up getting divorced, and Morgan was still just a baby pretty much at that time, and I was still just trying to figure out who I was, where I was going, with some false dream of making music. But this thing about God never left my mind and my heart, and so I started finding myself listening to Calvary Satellite Network, CSN Radio Network. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I'm not.
But Calvary Chapels,
Yeah.
they have a satellite radio network.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it's broadcast on, I think, a couple stations in our area.
What year was that?
This would have been like 96, 97, maybe, 98,
Okay.
right around there.
So I was actually baptized by Chuck Smith
Oh, were you really?
in
No
Pirates
kidding.
Cove.
That is so cool.
Yeah. So if you guys don't know who Chuck Smith
I
is,
know exactly who Chuck Smith is.
the movie Jesus Revolution, and that just brought back so many memories for me because I was there.
Yeah.
I mean, that was my 100% real baptism because I was double dipped and sprinkled. I'm like an ice cream cone. Because I was
great.
sprinkled as a baby,
Yep,
and then
yep.
I got baptized when I was 16, but
Yeah.
it really wasn't an appropriate one. I was doing it. My aunt wanted me to be baptized, and so I did that. And my heart really wasn't changed, but this one was real.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't know that. The reason why I'm so surprised is I have a lot of friends with Calvary now, and I didn't know they had a radio
Yeah.
station.
I used to listen to Chuck Smith all the time. In fact, he's one of...
Well, his podcasts or
Yeah.
the videos they have are amazing.
Yeah, he was instrumental in a lot of my early understanding of
Yeah.
kind of interpreting and understanding what the Bible meant about a lot of things.
Oh yeah, precept upon precept.
Yep, exactly. And I think listening to that station really opened my mind and my heart to kind of like understand a lot more about how to interpret the Bible, you know. I think I had somebody had given me a Bible once when I was in school. It was somebody was handing him out, you know, Christian, I'm sure
Yeah.
there was, and I ended up with it, and I think I glanced at it and was like, I don't understand any of this. You know? But then I started hearing some of these pastors talk about some of this stuff, Greg Laurie and Chuck Smith and all these guys, and I'm like, wow, this is. And so here was the thing that fascinated me most. It was the study of end times.
Yes.
It was all of this end times prophecy stuff, prophecies that relates to Jesus and his coming and his the rapture of the church and all these things that were being discussed. And it was like, whoa, you know, this is crazy. And I'm not sure exactly how this happened, but as time went on, I just kind of fell off it a little bit, but it never left my mind and my heart, right? So I listened to this stuff, and sometime between the transition of the divorce of my ex-wife, I was working for a company here in town, and one of the guys I worked for was another guy who was just a really good music guy, and we talked music all the time, and I told him about my band, and he was like, man, he's like, you got to give me a CD. He's like, my niece loves your band, and I was like, oh yeah, sure, no problem. I gave him a CD, I think a T-shirt and some other stuff and stickers or something. Well, come to find out, his niece was actually a big fan of our band, and we ended up meeting at a show that I was playing, and I can't explain this, but it's kind of like one of those love at first sight kind of things for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so we just kind of were like clicked and started like wanting to hang out and get to know each other more. And so it was one of those things that just kind of naturally progressed over time. But at that point, I had kind of gotten right back into, it was music, it was everything else. The Lord just kind of got pushed back off to the side again. And my pursuit for God had just kind of fallen by the wayside again. And so it was just one of these things where
It's hard when you're not in community.
yeah, and this girl, her name's Tanya, that I was dating at the time.
I know that name.
You know that name, yeah, and we'll get to that point. I guess. But well, to clear it up, she's my wife now. But
yeah.
but for anybody who didn't know that, we started dating, and but it was kind of it was like this gasoline and match kind of situation where here I am, this rock and roll guy, and she's like a bartender, right?
Right.
So it was like, while we just loved hanging out with each other, we were not good
For each other.
we were not good for our spiritual growth, for our health, for a number of things. And so
It's kind of like Johnny Cash's song "Ring of Fire."
100%. Yeah, 100%. It was like that a
Yeah.
lot, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just a train wreck from one bar club to the next, you know, and it got to the point where even like I couldn't even perform anymore because I was just drinking so much and drugs and everything else, and it was just terrible. I mean, it was a terrible way to live, and but I was happy as a pig in slop in that life, or at least I thought.
Yeah, you thought.
Right, I thought I was, and so.
Slop. I love that.
But that's what
because basically it's a spiritual world you're in because you don't feel like it's a spiritual world. You just think you're just having fun.
Yeah.
But you know, drugs and alcohol are just
It's a
demons.
prison.
Demons with a dress on. You know, I mean, they're just trying to lure you in.
Yeah, it was like a prison,
Yeah.
and painted out to be like Disneyland in my mind and in my heart. You know, like, oh, this is what everybody's doing. This is where I want to be. It was the social aspect of it. It was all of it.
Exactly.
So destructive, and you know, it's funny. There's a lot of people who love you when you're in that state. You know what I mean? Because you just affirm their own conditions and their own, you know, situation of being in the pit, so to speak. And so there's never really anybody trying to help anybody else out of that life.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, but that was life. That's the life we were living. She was a bartender. I was going to be the rock and roll star, and this is who we were, right? And something traumatic happened, and it was the events of 9/11. I woke up the morning to go to work, and I had remembered turning on the TV and seeing all this stuff happen, and just being like, "This is it. It's the end of the world. It's happening right now."
Felt that way to me too.
Right? And I just remember being overwhelmed with emotion and fear, and just not knowing what was going to happen next. And that was the beginning, obviously, of a lot of things going on in our world and our country. You know, the whole Iraq thing and all kinds of things were taking place, and so yeah, and it was one of those things where it was like I went through this momentary spell of just kind of living in fear and not knowing what was going to happen next, and tried to pretend like life was just going to go on the way it always has, but in my heart and my head feeling like something's not right, and I gotta figure this out. And this is one of those ways in which God knows, because He knows me. My brain is not what it used to be. I'm not as sharp as I once was. I rely on my wife's memory a lot to help me remember things, dates and times and events, you know. But this is one of those ones where the Lord helped me out. He was like, "I want this moment to be significant for you." And it was February 22nd, 2022.
Wow.
I'm sorry, 2002. No,
So-
22. I'm sorry, 20.
No, it's two. Had
Yeah.
to be two.
2002. Yes, I'm
So-
sorry.
so
Yeah, because
it was
2001.
two-
It was
two,
February
two.
after 2001.
So it's two.
Yes,
two.
exactly. And it was like, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure it was right close to 2:00 in the afternoon when this happened. I was working at BMC West, which used to be over on Vista Boulevard, doing the same kind of thing I do now. And I was driving by the gas station on Vista Boulevard, the quick stop right there on the corner of, I can't think of that street, but it's right there next to the freeway.
Oh yeah.
And
There's a Wendy's there now,
Yep.
and there's a McDonald's. And, yeah,
That gas
I
station.
always know the food places because they have the restrooms.
Sound like my wife. That's exactly how she is. So I was listening to CSN radio, and I heard a commercial or an advertisement for a ministry called Need Him. And they basically just said, if you'd like to know Jesus, call this number, and one of our counselors will talk to you and pray with you.
Wow.
I pulled into the parking lot right then and there, and it was like God had just reached into my heart and was like, do this. Don't drive another foot without stopping and doing this right now. And I pulled into the parking lot. I called the number. I remember this guy I was speaking with. He was this Southern guy, you know, and just the nicest guy ever. And he asked me my name and who I was and why I was calling in. And I just told him, I just said, man, I don't know why I'm calling in other than I need Jesus Christ in my life. And so he was clearly just super happy to hear that and was like, well, let's pray together. And so we prayed together, and I prayed, you know, everything he said, I said after him, and I believed in my heart, and I gave my life to the Lord right then and there in that parking lot at the gas station on that date at that time. And I remember after we hung up the phone feeling like a 10,000-pound weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I believed and I knew that every mistake and every sin and everything I had been doing leading up to this through my whole life, it was like it was all just washed away.
Wow.
Even though like moments before, it was like it was all in front of my eyes
Crushing.
all the time, just crushing me. And so it was a life-changing experience. And I know that doesn't happen for everybody. Not everybody has that moment where they feel like there's like an experience, a feeling, I was one of those people that had that experience and feeling. And so that was the beginning of my life now. And needless to say, it led to some interesting reactions. So,
Starting with
my girlfriend at the time, Tanyan, who I happened to drive home and I just told her, oh, surprise. I walked in the door and I'm like, I have to sit down. I need to tell you something. I gave my life to Jesus Christ today, and I think we should get married.
Wow.
That was pretty much the reaction she gave me. She was like, excuse me? And clearly she's looking at me like I've just lost my mind and something has happened, or I'd taken a drug that didn't agree with me or something, so.
And which tablet did you take?
Yeah, exactly. Was that the red pill or the blue pill?
Yeah.
Because something's going on here, right? And so, I remember feeling like I just wanted to do it all right. I wanted life from here on out to be right. I didn't want to, I'd already gotten rid of the baggage. Why would I want to go back? I couldn't go back.
Right.
Or at least so I thought. The difficult thing about someone like me in my position who doesn't have a family that's church, doesn't have friends that are church, who I just basically was a solo individual going into this. I had no community.
Right.
I had no church. I had no nothing, right? So other than the Holy Spirit. Telling me that, doing his best to navigate this puppet, it's just like, come on, help me out here, and I'm just going off the rails in every direction. Right. And so, after this encounter with my girlfriend, it was like, I had her convinced to a degree to say, okay, let's go to church. Let's go to church and see what this is all about. Okay. And so we started attending Sparks Christian Fellowship.
Okay.
And again, it was one of those situations, even though I had just not long before given my life to Christ, I still felt like out of place. I just felt like, I don't like church, or something's not right for me. You know what I mean? And not that there was anything wrong with the church.
No,
it was something that's still with me.
Yeah.
And so there was just this kind of weird place that I was in where the old me hadn't completely gone, and so as time went on, right back into the routine, doing the band thing, back into life as usual, and partying it up, going to tours, and just right back to self-destruction. And it was just not good. I mean, not good at all. But God in his infinite grace didn't let me go. That's right. And thankfully I didn't destroy myself. There were plenty of opportunities. Yeah. And there were some things that happened in my life. One particular was I ended up with a DUI when at a still pretty young age, mid-30s, maybe late 30s probably. And it was probably mid-30s. I remember that experience as being one like absolutely terrifying, because I actually rear-ended somebody and they got hurt.
Okay.
And not severe, but I mean, it was still, and it wasn't even really like, but it was enough for me to kind of go, what am I doing? Yeah. What am I doing? And lost my driver's license and had to go to court and do all the stuff. And
I call it God's placing us on restriction.
Yeah.
It looks like it's horrible, but it's really the blessing, of God. We're gonna take a break. We're gonna go to a stop on this episode, but what I'd like to mention is if you need Jesus in your life, we're gonna have some links below and some resources because we all need Jesus. We may just not know it yet. Amen. So thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
We'll start our second second episode and talk through the next half of your testimony.
Sounds real good.
Okay.
Thanks.